She, before she married Prince Charles, was taken to a ceremony where she witnessed them shape-shifting. And when she came back to her apartment, she was throwing up from being sick of seeing the sights of them actually slaughtering babies and drinking their blood. These people actually have women kept in cages. Their sole purpose in life is to give birth and have the baby sacrificed. To reptilians, babies are a delicacy. They have the strongest genetics and the strongest hormones. And especially small children who are brought to the point of severe fear and murdered at that point, that is the highest energetic output that they can possibly capture. And that's what they do. And drink the blood. This is part of their ceremony. This is the sacrifice. Now, Diana was pregnant, and they used the fetus in a ceremony after they killed her. The car she was riding in was not her regular car. It was a car that had been rebuilt and sent from Germany to get her in Paris. The driver was not drunk. If any of you had seen the video taken at the hotel before they left, did he look drunk to you? If he was anywhere near drunk as they claimed him to be, he'd be falling on his face. Do you think she would have gotten in a car with a driver who was that drunk? No.
In one of his speeches, he did say that they base their food on our adrenal glands. And
yeah, they derive one of their happy drugs from us. So when they frighten us and we get the adrenaline going, yeah, that's like a drug to them. But then they eat our blood.
Really?
Yeah, they eat it. Yeah, they want our blood, and they eat our body parts. There was this big giant bat.
Certain ones.
Well, it sounded like the reptilian ones specifically were doing this.
You talked about eating of children or people, and while I was there, you said it was because of the purity of the passion and emotion brought up the fear, the high fear, and the high adrenal activity was attractive to them. I understand that, but an advanced technology would seem to me would be able to clone their food or clone. We can make adrenaline supplements or different things.
Okay. Now, I want you to look at this idea. When is anything that's a clone as good as the original? Okay. What you fail to realize is, yeah, they can create clones, and they have human clones, but you cannot put soul in it. Okay? You may grow an organic processor in the brain to get them to act and do everything, but there's no soul attached to it. And as long as there's no soul, you don't have true emotion. True emotion? Well, your adrenaline rush. Okay, if I were to go over and do something to you and scare the hell out of you, okay, you would have a very serious emotional rush. Okay? They're addicted to the peaking of that emotional rush. It's like a narcotic to them because they don't have it. That's why they're so interested in us. They're numb. They're numb. Their physicalities are numb. They're all in their head. They're in self-imposed loneliness. Okay?
Now, one of the very first colonies or places that was colonized on the planet is North America, what we now call the United States. There are approximately, today, 1,833 of these reptilians still existing inside the planet. They have lived here for thousands of years. They live thousands of years. Their bodies are not like ours. They live anywhere from 100 to 200 miles beneath the surface. This is where they are. is all over. The planet is honeycombed with tunnels and caverns.
I've heard that the reptilians feed off our fear.
The reptilians tend to live off flesh. That's not an area I like to go into much.
Do they have people like us who go into these children? They sure can't come 8 miles up. They can't live on the earth. I don't
They have help.
They have help.
They have help. They have help. Yes. Somebody on the surface is gathering the children and taking them to them. That's all I'm going to say, because I'll get in big trouble, especially now on video. Okay? But just think out the process. Take it apart, take the whole thing apart, and figure out how could they get there. And you'll come up with the answer.
Whenever you see one, you ought to just run like hell. You shouldn't approach it. You shouldn't provoke it. Just get the hell out of its way. Just get out of its way. Just run. You know, there is a way to kill them. If you can't cut off their head, they have 2 hearts. There's one here, underneath this armpit, and one here. Or if you can't get to that area, you need to slow it down. You need to hit it right above its groin area. It has a very large liver. You need to wound it there to slow it down. It is not something where man-to-man combat you're going to be able to deal with, because they apparently have the strength of 12, 15 men. They're incredibly quick. They're incredibly psychic. They know what you're going to do before you do it. And you know, if they get here en masse, we got real problems. Real problems.
What do the Andromedans advise human beings to do if they encounter an Alpha Draconin?
To leave. You leave its space. Get away. To get away.
What if they can't?
Then they can't.
And if they can't?
They'll usually be killed.
And he says, and we all saw that there was a ritual, some sort of a ritual going on in the valley that we had come up on that we were not expecting. And there was a large round area out in the valley. We were up on the mountaintop looking down. This large round area in the valley had been cleared away, and there was a round circle of people wearing robes, and they were swaying back and forth, holding hands and chanting. And there was obviously a priest or someone in the middle with a robe. And he said, we were pretty far away, but we weren't that far. We could see what was going on. And so he said, we told the children to be quiet, and no one said anything because we realized we were interrupting some sort of a religious ritual or whatever. And he said, while we were standing there, in the circle appeared another entity out of nowhere, and it was much, much larger in size than everyone else that was there. And he said, the moment it appeared in that circle from out of nowhere, it pointed up at us. And the ritual stopped, the singing stopped, everyone pointed up, and we knew that we'd been seen. And he said, so we figured we were far enough away, up on the mountain, and they were out in the valley, that, you know, they would never catch up with us. He said, we turned to run, and that entity that was in the circle was there within a few seconds. It confronted us. It came all the way across the valley and up the side of the mountain. It was not human. And he says, there were 6 families here. We're talking about 6 Christian families with women and children. And he said, we all stood there and watched this thing and saw this thing. He said it was well over 7 foot tall. It was extremely muscular, almost an obscenity. It was extremely muscular in body form. He said, but it was designed like a male human. But it was totally filled with scales, and the head, this thing's over 7 foot tall, the head was the head of a reptile. And he said, it stared at us, and we could tell this thing was an extremely intelligent. It was not a reptile in the normal sense. And he said, this thing stood there staring at all of us. And he said, I was amazed. Even the children didn't cry. No one could do anything. They were so frightened. He says, and it finally decided that we were not a threat to it, so it turned like it was going to leave, and then it stopped and turned back around and looked at the men, and it never said a thing. He said, but we could tell what it was thinking, that it was very unhappy that we had interrupted its ritual, and it was trying to decide what it was going to do about us. And he said, and it finally turned, and in just a flip of an eye, he said, just a twinkling of an eye, it was gone. Zing, it was gone. And he said, then went back down into the circle. He said, we took off running, and no one said anything. We just ran and ran and ran. And he says, so this morning when I heard you on the radio talking about reptilian gods, he says, I got news for you. They're still here. We saw one.